Today we are going to talk about building agents with BigQuery. I am Sandeep Karmarkar, a product manager with BigQuery. And with me, I also have my engineering counterpart, Jiaxun. And we have a guest speaker joining us from Carrefour, Guillaume. Let me set up some context. Within Google Cloud, we are building this vision of agentic data cloud, where AI is infused across all of our layers, from TPUs all the way to our data warehouse. In this agentic data cloud, we are providing agentic experiences for every user. We have assistive experiences for those who are coding with us. We have first-party data agents. If you want to do common data tasks like data engineering, data science, you can do it quickly with our first-party agents. And then, for builders like all of you, we also have tools and integrations so that you can build with us. So let's build together. We have a set of options as your starting point when you choose to build with us. And the way I have arranged this is in a stack, where as you go up the stack, you get more built-in value from us, while as you go down the stack, you have a lot more flexibility, but then you own the value creation. For example, all the way at the top is the concept of a data agent, where you offload the core agentic harness, reasoning, as well as access to Gemini to us, while you bring in your own context. While as you go all the way down, you of course have our APIs that you can use to build your skills and tools as you build your own agents. In between, there are multiple open source and managed options, and that's what we are going to cover today. So let's get started. Let's start with a couple of open source options. One of the products within Google I love is our Google ADK or Agent Development Kit. We in BigQuery team have been working very closely with ADK. So now, if you do a pip install of an ADK package, you always have BigQuery tools available for you. These are BigQuery function tools, first party, so supported from us, and they come in three categories. One, you have some foundational tools. This is where your agent can find tables, can get more information about tables and data sets, or even query tables in many different modes. Then you also have advanced tools. This is where we bring in BigQuery's advanced capabilities to closer to your agent, forecasting, contribution analysis, and the likes. And lastly, we also are bringing in the data agent that you might have created outside as a tool within your ADK. So your agent can use this data agent for its outer loop as well. We have also recently introduced first-party skills, BigQuery skills, right into ADK. So now your agent can get even more accuracy when building data workflows and working with BigQuery. These tools are now available as a stable version, so we invite you all to build your production agents with us. Here is an example. Here's an example where I've built a data agent in less than 10 lines of code. I'm utilizing a special write mode called blocked, so I don't want any modifications to my data. I'm utilizing application default credentials. You can use OAuth or many other methods. And just like that, within 10 lines of code, you have your first data agent ready. Nothing to install, nothing to configure. All right. With that said, let's move a step up the stack. This is where you have made an architectural choice of choosing Model Context Protocol or an MCP as your architectural decision for connecting with your data. But you still want open source. And for you, we have an open source MCP toolbox. This is a power-packed toolbox packed with access to multiple data connectors, BigQuery being one of them. Getting started with toolbox is super simple. You can download a pre-built binary or build it yourselves. You configure the tools using a YAML, and then you start this MCP server locally or remotely. So when you configure the YAML, you have a set of pre-built tools available from us. These tools are the same ones I talked about on the ADK slide. But if there's one thing you want to remember about MCP Toolbox, is its ability to create custom tools using parameterized SQL. So agent doesn't have to write SQL. It can just pass a parameter. And in some cases, that gives you a lot more determinism in your agentic actions. Here's an example. This is where I am building an AI chatbot or an assistant for hotel booking. So on your left-hand side, I have my YAML file defining certain tools. A tool that I have defined using parameterized SQL is to just find hotels by name. And I'm defining SQL, name is a parameter. I have defined few more such tools like searching by location, booking hotel, and whatnot. And then on your right-hand side, I have started MCP toolbox on localhost. I've connected to it through ADK. And again, within less than 10 lines of code, I have my first data agent ready. MCP toolbox and the tools are also available in the stable version now. Invite you all to build your production agents with us. Let's move on. We move up the stack. This is where you don't want to manage anything. You don't want to get into infrastructure. You just want access to MCP on a remote managed MCP server. Google has launched a bunch of its services as managed MCP server. Zero ops infrastructure, fully managed, remote, and fully scalable. It also integrates with our core governance mechanisms, IAM, audit log, VPCSC. So you get the most governed and secure MCP connectivity from us. BigQuery is one of the first ones to be generally available as part of this infrastructure. BigQuery MCP server is available at bigquery.googleapis.com/MCP. That's all your agent has to connect to. Once your agent connects to this endpoint, it'll get two sets of tools. One which are read-only, and then there is one read-write tool. The biggest distinction between this is the read-only SQL tool and a read-write SQL tool. The read-only SQL will block all the data modifications and data definition queries, DMLs and DDLs, to make sure that your agent unintentionally doesn't end up modifying some data. But if you need access to the entire SQL surface, you do have that available through our execute SQL tool. Now, key point here to stress is that because we integrate with the core platform and IAM, you as a data administrator can even put an IAM deny policy to deny access to all read-write tools. So you don't have to depend upon your agent developer to make the right choice. You as a data owner can protect it from your project. BigQuery MCP server also gets the benefit of audit logging. We add additional labels so that you can track costs back to MCP. All of this is generally available today. Here is an example. Again, I have created an agent using ADK. I'm utilizing our MCP server. In this case, I'm utilizing a bearer token for my authentication, but you can also utilize OAuth. What we have additionally done is making sure Google's MCP server is also available, rather BigQuery's MCP server is also available in some registries like Cloud Registry. So here is an example where you can discover in Cloud AI, BigQuery MCP server, and even your business users can start having conversations with BigQuery. You know, even Anthropic is utilizing our MCP server internally for their internal users to give access to BigQuery data, analyze their own metrics. We also have partners like Glean, who are giving access to their BigQuery customers through our MCP server. They believe this way their customers are able to make decisions faster, move faster, because they have access to the right data in natural language. In fact, all across our tools, just in last 6 months, we have seen 20x growth in agent developers working with us. And it keeps growing. This is where we're getting millions of queries coming to BigQuery every month through our agentic connectivity and integrations. With that, let's move up the stack. This is where we bring in value to you, out of the box. This is the concept of data agent. This is where you utilize our core agentic harness, our agentic reasoning and access to Gemini, while you bring in your data sets and tables on which you want to build a data agent. Let's say sales data agent, marketing data agent. And then you can start having a conversation with this data agent right within our console. We automatically pull a lot of context from knowledge catalog, but you can also supply it with your own business context. You can also access the same agent and by publishing it to Gemini Enterprise, as well as to Looker Studio or Data Studio. Exactly. So this way, you also have ability for your business users to utilize the data agent, and not only restricted to your core engineering group. The other thing that it also comes up with are the core APIs that you can also use to build a data agent and distribute a data agent. In fact, we have a lot of customers who build it using the UI, test it using the UI, but then use our APIs to integrate into some of the business apps like Slack, so that their business users can have access to this data agent right where they are. Marketing users can have access to a marketing data agent, and the sales users can have access to the sales data agent. These capabilities are generally available, so you can get started to build this today as well. This brings me back to the stack we started with. We started with some of the open source offering, covered all the way to the data agents where we drive value, and you just bring in your own context. This also brings me to a very dear topic for me, which is agent observability. Agent observability has been becoming even more important in the last 3 to 6 months, as a lot of agent developers are moving from development to productionization. And they are realizing that the traditional observability is a little different compared to the agent observability. There are 3 key things that they find they are different. One, agent logs are as important as the agent code. Because many times, unless the agent actually went through the execution, you don't know what agent did. So these developers need these logs even during the development phase. The second is, while you want to find out performance and errors from your logs, agent logs are also critical for your agent evaluation. This is where you'll compare answers with your golden data set, for example. You also need agent logs to identify opportunities for agent optimization, categorizing your conversations. What this means is that traditional group bys and filters on these logs are not enough. You need advanced analytical capabilities when looking at the logs. Things like LLM as a judge putting on these logs is a very, very key use case for many of the developers. And lastly, we anticipate a lot of these logs will be multimodal in nature. Not typical of your typical machine data. This is where you'll have your images, your videos, your audio transcript also part of your logs. So agent logs and observability is a step function compared to your traditional observability. And we realized it. We also realized that BigQuery has a lot of these capabilities. When put together, makes it a very, very compelling platform for your agent ops, agent observability, and agent analytics. So we launched something called as an agent analytics 4 months back, and it is generally available now. Agent analytics is an open source plugin for ADK users and an open source callback handler for LangGraph users. With simple 1 line of code change within your ADK code, you can now start streaming all of your agent activity directly to BigQuery table of your choice. We utilize BigQuery streaming write capability to actually write the data, so data is available in near real time for you to analyze. It also has very little impact on your core agent performance. The data logged to BigQuery can also be multimodal in nature, because BigQuery supports multimodal data natively through our object references. Once the data is in BigQuery, you can, of course, do your traditional SQL, look at your errors, look at your performance, look at your token consumption. But BigQuery also brings in LLM in its AI functions. With the power of LLM in AI functions, you can start running evaluations. You can start categorizing conversations right within SQL in a very scalable offline batch manner. These capabilities are generally available today. But what's even better is once your data is in BigQuery, you can create a data agent on top of it. So now you can start having conversations with your agent logs to understand your production agents. We have seen a lot of excited customers utilizing this today, including Kyria, who are utilizing BigQuery Agent Analytics, along with some of our BigQuery capabilities to build their own agentic data platform. We also have Bloomberg Media, who are not just utilizing BigQuery capabilities, but many other Google Cloud capabilities to actually build data agents and empower their internal users with natural language questions and answers. All right, enough of talking. I'm excited to see what you build, but we also have a demo for you, demoing some of these capabilities today. So I invite Jiaxun to do the demo. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jiaxun, the manager of the data agent team in BigQuery. Today, I'm so excited to showcase how you can build an ADK agent with a few lines of code to help you make the key business decisions. In this demo, I want to open up a new bakery store in LA. So let's take a look at the overview of the agent structure. The core part is an ADK agent, which leverages two sets of MCP tools, one for BigQuery, one for Google Maps. It's also worth mentioning that both tools are managed by Google, which means you don't have to set up your own local MCP servers to talk to these services. And then we use the Agent Analytics plugin in ADK to log your agent events to a BigQuery table in real time. Later on, we use the first-party BigQuery conversational analytics agent to analyze your agent performance on top of that table. All right, let's take a look at the agent code. As you can see here, it's really simple, right? We only have 3 parts. The first part is the agent instructions provided by users. And the second part is a set of tools, which are predefined by Google. Last but not least, with one line code of change, you can add the BigQuery Agent Analytics plugin into your agent to log your agent events. I already started the agent, and we can start asking questions. Here's the ADK web page you can use to interact with your agents. Because I'm mostly targeting the morning breakfast, so I want to understand the morning traffic in that area. So my first question is, show me the top zip code with the most morning traffic. So here, we have a list of tools that are accessible by the agent. Since this question cannot be answered by Google Maps, the agent decides to use the BigQuery tools to first search all my tables in my project, and then get the schema and information, metadata, from those tables. At last, it comes up with the right SQL query to run against that table and get the insight. So here we found 90403 as the zip code I want to target. Okay, my next question is, I don't want to jump into an overheated market, right? So I want to see how many operating bakeries are there in this zip code. So let's type that in. So list all operating bakery stores in that zip code. So this time, since my question is more about the real-time information, the agent decided to use the Google Maps tool. And it returns 4 different operating bakery stores in that zone. We can even click on the links to zoom in to see what those store looks like. All right. I think we can try lots of questions. For my initial inventory, let's say I want to open up a bakery store in that zone. I want to see the top 3 best-selling items. So list me the top 3 best-selling bakery items in LA according to the sales history. So apparently for such information, the agent cannot get that information from the Google Maps. So again, it's using my BigQuery table. All right, let's say you now deploy this agent. You want to understand how well this agent performs. Thanks to the Agent Analytics plugin, we already log all the agent events into a BigQuery table. Here's the schema. As you can see, it's really comprehensive. It has all the information about the tool use, the latency, the tokens, input and outputs. But at the same time, it's also complex, right? So probably it's hard for human to write SQL on top of that. Thankfully, we have the conversational analytics agent from BigQuery, where we can directly chat with this agent. Let's try a question. Show me the breakdown of the 2 latencies. So for this question, it will probably take 30 seconds to 1 minute to get an answer. As we are waiting, I also want to highlight, this is actually a shortcut for you to ask ad hoc questions. But what if you want to create a more polished agent and share with your users? You can just use the Agent Hub right here, where you can provide actual context and query multiple tables. For example, you can provide the system instructions, the golden SQL queries, the business glossaries, and more. All right. So it comes up with the right SQL query, run the query, draw a really nice graph, and at last, it also gives you detailed insights. Let's take a quick look. It's kind of surprising to me that the most time-consuming tool is search places rather than the run query. Part of the reason could be our tables are small. With these information and insights, you can do further pruning of your prompts and to use in your agent. Cool, let's do a quick recap. So we just show you how to convert a few lines of code to a fully functional business consultant agent. With the managed MCP tools, we bypass the server setup and directly jump into solving the real problem. And thanks to the Agent Analytics plugin, we can log the agent events to a BigQuery table in real time for further analysis. At last, we also show the power of conversational analytics agent in BigQuery to get instant insight using natural language. As you're aware, this is a really exciting moment in this agent development area, and everything is moving so fast. We'd love to work with every one of you to shape the future of data agents. So please give them a try and let us know what you think. That being said, let's also welcome Guillaume from Carrefour. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. That's okay? Yeah. I'm very happy to be here with you to share what we've done at Carrefour to implement and to use BigQuery toolsets and the BigQuery Agent Analytics. First, a word about Carrefour. Carrefour is one of the major retailers in the world, like Walmart in the US. And we have a lot of countries, a lot of data, and we need to manage this. At Carrefour, I'm data architect at the headquarters and in charge of the group and France data platform. I will to take an example and a use case that we implement with the France data platform. This data platform is global. That means all the business, Carrefour businesses pass through this platform to exchange data. It's named Phoenix Darwin, Phoenix for the ingestion, Darwin for the expositions. And we're using BigQuery for our cold data, slow data, and Bigtable for the low latency data, especially for the APIs. In this platform, for example, when you are paying at the checkout line in store, the checkout line send your data and your loyalty data directly to the platform in real time through Kafka. Then the data platform is able to notify your mobile app with your tickets in a few seconds after the payment. How we are doing this? In fact, we have also the loyalty data, your name, your code ID, your mobile app registration. We are performing a join in the data platform and sending the notification to the mobile app. Then, with the mobile app, you can also perform e-commerce purchases and drive. This data of the purchases in store and in the mobile app are very interesting for the supply chain to be able to forecast, to perform orders, to avoid any shortage in store. So you can see that we have many producers, many consumers of the data, and sometimes the consumers are also the producer. So this platform is really central, and we have a platform, a channel to help the consumer and the producer of the data to use it. For this, we have set up a Google Chat space to be able to exchange with the user, the internal user of the data platform. Of course, there are also documentations, but as you know, the users are lazy and prefer ask directly in the Google Chat than to read the documentations. So, no problem. We have users that are asking questions, and the data platform team, my team, answers those questions in the Google Chat space. The problem is because we have many data consumer and producer, 150 ingestion pipeline and more than 600 consumer of the data, and many teams, you have turnover in the team. And when a new member joins a team, he will ask the same question as before, and the data platform team will answer the same question again. And a new member again, ask again and again, and it's very time-consuming and boring for the data platform team. That's why we choose to implement an agent to solve this issue. This agent will gather the data from the documentations, but also from the chat history, because also in the chat history, when you're discussing when the users, you can provide some piece of data, piece of insights on the data platform. And then when a new member will join the team, the agent will be able to answer automatically and again and again. If the agent provide not accurate answers, no problem, the data platform team is able to add more details in the answer, and because this communication, this conversation will belong to the chat history, the agent will become better and better day after day. So we implemented this, not without any difficulties to manage the Google Chat APIs, but the final high overview, high-level architecture is this one. We have Google Chat Space in one side, we have the ADK one in the other side, and the middleware to translate the API's data format to ADK APIs. And I hosted all on Cloud Run because I'm a big fan of Cloud Run and it's a great place to host agents. The first version was to have a RAG engine, a RAG-based feature for the chat history and the documentations, and we are using Vertex AI search engine for this. And the Vertex AI agent engine on this the sessions, today's agent session in Gemini Enterprise agent platform, so it's rebranding to manage the sessions in serverless way. And of course, Gemini for the inference. That's great, it works, but how the user use the agents? You know that we have traffic, but what they are asking and what's happened. And for this, we need observability. That's why later last year, we choose to add the BigQuery Agent Analytics plugin to have more data on how the user use and expects to have some answer from the agents. And because we are belonging to the data platform, we are able to perform some SQL query. For example, this one. We would like to know what is the latest message sent by a user in a session to stop the conversation. In fact, why the user stopped to discuss with the agents. So the first part is to get the latest message in the session. And the second one is to classify, to understand the different cases where the conversation end. At the beginning, only in the other, we deep dive and we found different buckets. And with the AI.classify ML feature on BigQuery, we're able to have several buckets. And we have this kind of results with the latest questions asked by the users. You have the new questions, you have documentations, but also the user would like to run a query or to have a query to run on BigQuery. So earlier this year, we choose to implement this new feature. I mean, we had to generate first a correct query to run in BigQuery, because sometimes the documentation is not accurate, or the chat history also have not the exact naming of the tables, the fields, or the datasets. And so we wrote Python code to get the dataset list, to get the table list, the table details with the fields and so on. And we discover the BigQuery ADK toolsets, and in fact to switch to it because it was all this feature was automatically implemented in the ADK BigQuery toolsets, and we removed hundreds of lines of codes from our Python tools. That's great. Now we can generate a correct SQL query, but we need to run it on BigQuery. And we can't run it with the agent's identity because we need to run the data with the credential of the end user to be sure to query only the data of the user and not the data of all Carrefour because it's not secure in terms of data access. For security, we choose to implement the OAuth protocol, and it's a few lines of code to add to the BigQuery toolset, 3 or 4 lines. But Google Chat Space is not able to handle this OAuth flow. That's why we had to implement or to deploy a new clearance services to manage this new flow. And when the OAuth flow gets the authorization token, is passed back to the middleware and to agents, and the agent is able to run the query. The problem here is because you are in Google Chat Space with multiple users, if you send your credentials in a space with multiple users, any other users can use your credentials. That's why we restrict this feature to a direct message with the agents, because it's more secure to have a one-to-one conversation between the user and the agents than to have a global space where anyone can run the query on your behalf. Now, let's just show you how it's works in a demo here. As you can see, I have a one-to-one conversation with my agent, Phoenix Darwin, and the first question I would like to ask to the agents is, what are the stock in store? Okay, what's the table, how to get this information? After a few seconds, I have a syncing message on Google Chat, and now I speed up the video to have all the syncing and all the thoughts of the agents to understand what the agent do and request and whatever. And after a few seconds, even minutes, you have a first answer. It could be long, but before it was a human that answered these questions, and it was much longer than this. Okay, now I have my answer. I can also review the source if I want to have more details on what is done. But now I would like to ask to have a simple query to get this data. I will ask the agent again, we'll think about it. And this time, I will query the list dataset, list tables to get the table and dataset info to create a valid and correct query to know the stock in store. I have this kind of answer. And also, the agent understood that the next step is to be connected to run the query, but not yet. Now, I would like to ask, what's the stock in store in a hypermarket in Latte? Latte is a small city in south of France where I grew. Not a nice city, but it's between Montpellier and the sea. It's a nice location. So great, the query is running. And this time it will ask me to connect and to identify myself to be able to run this query in the hypermarket in Latte. So I will click on the link. I will be redirected to a new page. I will start the authentication flow with OAuth, select my email, accept the different scope. Yeah, continue. And when the token has been get by the OAuth flow services, it's sent back to ADK, and ADK is able to run the query on my behalf, and then I can see the data. And automatically, the agents choose to query the data from the last day. And that's great. So that was our implementation. We'll deploy this in the next week to all our users at Carrefour. And we'll continue to observe what the users think about this feature and what they expect more. That's why we built new dashboards on top of BigQuery Agent Analytics data in BigQuery with the number of sessions per week. We're about 200 sessions per week on these agents to observe the error and the most tool used. Here you can see that the documentation is the most used. And we're also tracking the latency and the number of tokens. Here we are using the 2.5 Pro models because it's in Europe, and we're expecting the 3.1 Flash model also in Europe to speed up the answer provided by the agents. So now I would like to hand it over to Sandeep for the conclusions. Thank you. Oh, no. Excuse me. I forgot what yeah, in fact, the best one about the takeaways. First one, I would like to tell you that choose the right use case for your agents. In fact, if you want to add GenAI or AI on any use cases, it's not the good way. Choose the right one to have the best benefits of the AI or GenAI. Then bring the agent to the closer from the user. I mean, do not ask the user to go elsewhere to use your agents. Bring the agents where the users are. I mean, here in my use case, the users are on Google Chat Space. We bring the agents, plug it in Google Chat Space, and we are in immediate adoptions of the agents. And finally, never underestimate the integrations and the integration effort and cost for this. First, you can integrate the agent to your legacy app to bring the agent closest to your users. That's the first step. But also, if you want to use your enterprise company, your data in your company, if you want to use your legacy applications, like in mainframe, without any APIs and so on, it could be harder than you think to plug your existing applications to the agents. So think about it, and last of all, continue to observe and to monitor what your agents do. And I promise it's my latest slides. Thank you very much.
You can stay here. Thank you, Guillaume. And with that, that brings us to end of our session. We are super excited to see what you build with us. There's a lot more to learn all across Google. So there are a few sessions that we recommend go and check out. I think we are getting signals to wrap up, but we can take questions off the stage. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, man.